my loves, and welcome back to Spook Manor. Are you here for a tale of divine goddess intervention? Well, I have quite the scorcher for you. It is the story of a desperate man and his pretty wife on their way to a quaint family gathering. But things take a turn for the worst as they tread on sacred ground. Would you care to join me as we travel the twisted roads of Pali Highway? Then let's begin. It is a warm summer's day on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, where Kai sits in his large living room. He appears to be watching the ocean from the large bay window with a cup of coffee in hand. He stares off in a daze, not paying attention to the world around him. The air is sensually filled with a fragrant aroma of tropical flowers and salty ocean shores. Happy tourists play on the beaches as he watches them from his expensive hillside bungalow. How could anyone possibly be unhappy in such a beautiful setting? Well, Kai can tell you firsthand. He is a bright man in his late 40s of native Hawaiian descent. He is overweight, but not excessively, which doesn't complement his already small stature, being short in height compared to the average male. He wears glasses and works harder than any man he knows, and this made him a very wealthy man over time. But he has to work hard to keep his gorgeous wife Leilani happy. She is the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, and is also an island native. She stands tall above most women, thin and graceful with thick, long, flowing black hair that goes down past her tiny waist. People often wondered why Kai and Leilani were together. Strangers often assumed that the reason was due to the size of his baloney pony, or that it was perhaps excessive amounts of money that were at play. If you guessed that it was the latter, you would be correct, and are clearly paying attention. They are a mismatched couple, a relationship that is destined to fail. Kai was very naive when they first met. It happened not long after he got a great job post-college. He truly believed that Leilani loved him. She had a special way about her that made men feel important. She knew how to talk, how to dress, and the fact that she was an award-winning competitive hula dancer only added to her intrigue. For the first few years, he showered her with gifts and attention. But then she took it upon herself to indulge in unannounced spending sprees, and would often spend long nights out at bars, which he was not invited. This ultimately led to numerous arguments, causing a greater gap in their already troubled relationship. Where she once adored his every word, she now expressed disgust and disdain for his very existence. She made it a common point that he was not good enough for her, and that his money was all that was keeping her from leaving. But Kai was not a fighter. All he ever wanted was to make his beautiful wife happy. He could deal with the insults and the excessive shopping. He believed that if he kept trying, she would eventually see what a good man he is, how much he loves her, and would someday fall back into his arms in time. But it was about a month ago when everything had changed. Upon fixing something in her laptop, he stumbled across a romantic exchange of texts she shared with another man. Kai was devastated at first, yet as time passed and he did a little bit of detective work, he discovered that this man was not the only man she had been seeing behind his back. Rather, she had been seeing a number of men, and her scandalous acts had been going on for over a decade. Worst of all, her flings were with more men than he could keep up with, and this left him with a deep, sick feeling in the pit of his stomach. He carefully planned his next move. A divorce would be long and expensive. The way things had been set up, she would likely clean his clock in court. But he had one thing to his advantage. One thing she could not win or lose by a judge's decision, and that was the respect of her family. Leilani's grandmother had reached out to them several months ago about a family reunion. The location would be at a mountaintop resort outside of Honolulu, and this would be the ideal opportunity to expose her to her whole family. He had a video made of her text messages and other evidence against her, and was prepared to make a grandiose demonstration as to why he would be serving her with divorce papers that day. Keeping his devious plan to himself, he purchased a whole hog to barbecue for the festivities and planned to arrive the night before, so he had plenty of time to prepare for his big exposé. The night is dark as they drive along the twisted jungle roads. To a disgruntled couple, Pali Highway can be long and grueling in the foggy mist. Leilani made it a point to criticize Kai at every opportunity, demanding that he not embarrass her in front of his loved ones, that he was driving too fast or too slow. She belittled his appearance and mocked the way he spoke. All the while he sat in silence, eagerly awaiting his chance to finally get revenge. Leilani whined about how long it was taking. Then all of a sudden, the car began to stall as they were headed downhill on a steep part of the mountain road. This being a particularly tricky part of their journey, as it teetered along the cliff's edge. The road would first drop down into a curve before again going back uphill. The moon was out, but the sky and jungle were oddly dark. Smoky clouds surrounded them, and the vehicle slid on wet ground before coming to a complete stop. Leilani was angered by this and began to scream at Kai, accusing him of being responsible for this due to his negligence. It was when she attacked his manhood and ranted a tirade of verbal abuse that Kai finally had had enough, and he lashed out about her infidelity. First, a look of shock overcame her face, but that soon filled with rage, and then again changed to fear when all of a sudden there was a massive explosion that burst in front of the vehicle. To their utter shock, a giant woman appeared from the intense flames. The sight was overwhelming. She stood towering over them with lava flowing and heavy smoke all around. This woman is the unquestionable form of the volcano goddess Pele. The goddess pointed to Leilani and boomed with a roaring, angry voice. "How dare you cross my road, you unfaithful, philandering pig, and with a whole swine no less! Now you shall face my wrath for your infidelities." It was then that Leilani burst into flames, and her horrifying screams echoed across the mountains and valleys below. The volcano goddess then burst into a vast array of 1,000 torchlights, which spread out across the mountainside for what appeared to be miles. The lights blocked the roadway from all sides. It was then that Kai shook his head in disbelief at what he was seeing. It appeared to be a procession of warriors from the Battle of Nuuanu. Dressed in battle gear from the late 1700s, the warriors marched towards him. Kai covered his eyes, remembering the legend of the ghosts of Nuuanu, which stated that if you do not see the warriors as they march, you might be spared. And just as the legend also states, Kai began to pray to his native ancestors for protection. It was then that the car began to move. It was being rocked and pushed by the angry warriors towards the cavernous edge. Still Kai prayed and refused to look up as the warriors cried out in victory. The air shifted, and Kai felt his stomach in his throat as the vehicle went over the edge of the cliff. His body banged hard against the sides and roof as it rolled and bounced and flipped through the jungle foliage and jagged rock faces. Still Kai prayed to his ancestors with all his might. He heard the door fly open, and the feeling of a massive hand grabbed his upper arm. Suddenly, Kai was thrown from the vehicle by the supernatural force which held him. He hit the ground hard, knocking him unconscious as the car continued to roll down the mountain. Without knowing how much time had passed, Kai began to fade in and out of consciousness as he lay on the rainforest floor in the darkness. At one point, the car sat totaled a good way away from him, too far away to crawl in his broken and beaten state. Then, at another point, he saw intense flames. His ancestors would appear and comfort him as he struggled to hold on for life. Then, all he saw was a dark void for a long period of time. He could hear the roaring volcanic flames of the goddess Pele as he fought for survival on the damp ground. As consciousness finally came to him slowly, his ancestors turned into medics, and he was airlifted from the scene. Laying in the hospital bed with friends and loved ones around, the doctors informed Kai that his wife had not survived the wreck. By the time the accident had been reported, the car had been fully engulfed in flames as a result of a leak from the gasoline tank caused by the wreck, which sparked after the car had come to a complete stop. There was nothing left of Leilani, except the charred and crisp remains of the floozy she once was. Now that's what I call Hawaiian barbecue, goddess style. When Kai was finally alone, He thought about how lucky he had been. Not only had he survived the impossible, but now he didn't have to face the impending legal battle with that vile and evil woman. He was completely and utterly free. He thought of the legend of the volcano goddess Pele and how she had come to him in his time of need. It is said that she too had been scorned and cheated on by her lover, the pig god Kamapua'a. In retrospect, he realized the error of his ways. He should have known better than to bring a whole pig for a barbecue on Pali Highway to the family reunion. It had always been said that the goddess would stop your vehicle were you to travel with pork product in hand. But in the end, he was glad that he did. In the silence, gratitude for the goddess and his ancestors overcame him, and again he began to pray, with a special thanks to the warriors of the Battle of Nuuanu for aiding the goddess in her vengeance and saving his future by way of the accident. From this day forward, Kai lived a long and happy life. He found true love with a good woman in the exquisite white sand beaches and flowering tropical landscape of Hawaii. So tell me, my loves, have you been to Hawaii's haunted Pali Highway? Please comment down below and like and subscribe for more fictional stories that are often of actual urban legends and sometimes have historical reference. See you next week and have a good night.